Our guest today knows firsthand the peaks and valleys of life. David Alicea was homeless on the streets of New York at age 10. He bounced between several foster families before being taken in by a young couple who gave him stability. Today, he is an ordained minister and licensed psychologist and joins us in the studio to talk about his latest ministry project. David, it's such a pleasure to welcome you to Feel Like You Belong.
It's a pleasure being here and sharing this moment, and I appreciate so much this invitation. Thank you so much.
You bet. Now, to look at you, you look like the epitome of an accomplished person, right? You're well dressed, you speak well, you have multiple degrees, you're an ordained pastor, and yet your life did not start out so grandly. Talk about your earlier days.
Well, I was born in the Bronx, New York. My mother was a Latina. She was from Puerto Rico, and my father was Italian, and so from New York. And so they met, they fell in love, they married, and I was the firstborn. But things got rough for them. There was a lot of financial hardships, critical moments, and so my father decided to leave us, to abandon us, literally. And so my mother didn't have an academic preparation. She was a housewife dedicated to the chores of the house. And she had 2 more brothers and a sister, and a youngest sister. And at that time, she had to go out to work. And she would bring in a babysitter who eventually we learned she was alcoholic. And so she was very abusive and very violent. Okay. And at that time, I decided to leave the home. And
so you ran away?
I just ran away, became a runaway, and lived in the streets of New York, in the ghettos, abandoned streets, abandoned buildings, homes. And I would just learn how to steal. I would go to the pizzeria and say, my father's in the car, we want a large pizza. And when they would bring the pizza, I would just grab it and run with it. And so you see pizza flying all over the place. But if I would keep 1 or 2, that would be sometimes breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
So at age 10, it was all about survival.
It was just hacking it out and making it happen. Yes, a very difficult time in my life. But at the same time, it made me strong. It helped me develop some skills of, being by yourself, doing things, being committed to life.
So how long were you on the streets before you landed in the social services system?
Sort of a year, close to a year. Okay. I want to say. It was a little bit more, but it was close to a year. I was helped by some families, and some people of the community that's the kid, we don't know where he is or where he's coming from, but they would kind of help. But it was a marshal. Mm-hmm. Back in those days in New York, there was a challenge of kids attending school, and many of them were abandoning school. And so during school days, they would have marshals that would walk around the community, and they would see kids.
Looking for kids.
Yeah, they would see the kids that they were supposed to be in school, and I was one of them. He picked me up. I want to say grabbed me by the neck. But he got me into the system. A couple of social workers started working my case, and that's where I started ending in foster homes. One of the interesting things, Alan, is that sometimes, and I want to say this sometimes, underline that, please, foster homes have a worse setting, and they're worse than the home you left or abandoned. And so I went through 3 or 4 foster homes, suffered a lot. I think there were many issues there, rebellious. I didn't want to study. I just wanted to be out in the street, and that kind of thing.
So when did this couple, tell us about the couple that finally took you in?
Well, this was a couple. They were Latino from Puerto Rico, a Latino family from Puerto Rico. There was just both of them. They had married for probably 6 or 7 years, and they couldn't have a baby. They couldn't have a child. There were some problems there. And so she came to visit one of the foster homes I was in. And when she heard my story, she just fell in love with me. And she said, I want to take him with me.
Okay.
And so they did do that, but eventually they moved to Puerto Rico. And when they moved to Puerto Rico, they wanted to take me, but the state didn't allow it. And so, because
But that's not to another country. Puerto Rico is part of the United States.
But back then the system was more rigorous. The system was more tight.
Okay.
It doesn't have the vision and the perspective that it has now.
Okay.
And so, there was no guarantee he would be working in Puerto Rico and many other challenges. And so, without permission, they took me. And so I was a MIA, missing in action.
Okay.
And eventually the system just classified me as a dead person.
Vanished. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And which brought me eventually some problems, because when I went to, this was way down the road.
Now, did you speak Spanish when you were?
I only spoke English.
Okay. Because you grew up in New York.
Right,
Okay.
right. And I went to school. I did go to school. I missed some of the important classes like math and some other important, but it was all English.
Okay. So it was an adjustment for you being in an all Spanish-speaking environment when you went to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and the adjustment, I think it was in many areas, because one, I had to learn Spanish. And what my adopted mother would do was she would tell me, get in the car, and she would drive around the commercial, the businesses, with the billboards and all that. And she would tell me, start reading them to me aloud. And I would start trying to read them, which to this date, when I'm going through 28th Street or going to one of these neighborhoods with a lot of billboards.
In Spanish?
Well, not right now here in Grand Rapids, I automatically start reading them.
Reading out loud.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, there's Red Lobster, and there's this and that.
So this was her education program for?
This was her initial educational program. But I had to also adjust in terms of being with a very responsible family.
And you were not a very responsible young man.
There was some problems. They enrolled me in a school and they would kick me out. I was very rebellious. I was fighting a lot. I was being abusive. In fact, they used to call me when I achieved to get to 6th, 7th grade, they would call me the Indian because I had long hair. Okay. And so I looked like an Indian, and they would say if there was any trouble, they'd say, go get the Indian. And so I would join in the gang and start problems.
So what turned your life around from being this rebellious, angry kid?
Well, at the fourth school that they kicked me out, my adoptive mother looked at me and said, Edwin, because I was called Edwin before, Edwin D. Hernandez. My adoptive mother looked at me and she said, this is the last try. If you can't adapt, we're going to have to send you back to New York. And so what they did was they asked a friend of the family to take me into church. And he came in a Sunday and he said, you're coming with me. And he was a big, tall gentleman, over 200 pounds. I didn't see that it was, safe to say no to him. And so I went to church. And when I went to church, he took me to where I converted to the Lord. At that time, they had 1,400 people, tops and bottoms, and they were singing a hymn, and the pastor said, take out your handkerchiefs, take out a white piece of paper, whatever, and just wave them as we sing the chorus of that hymn. And at the time that they're doing that, I'm coming in through the main door.
Okay.
And when I saw that, I said, I turned to him, Felix was his name. I said, bring me back next Sunday. I want to come back next Sunday. And he was like, oh, yeah, we got him. I'm happy. Yeah, that's it. But then I was telling him, no, I just want to see what other crazy things these people do.
Waving hankies.
Waving, I mean, why? But that's how I got hooked up, interested, motivated. And I kept on going to church every Sunday until I was 14. I decided to accept Jesus as my Savior.
Okay. So you turned your life around, and then at some point you started dating a young woman.
Oh, yeah.
Named Myra.
Myra, I met her at college. I was doing, because I was first doing pre-medic and working with biology and all those natural sciences
So I have
courses.
to interrupt and say you really turned your life around, because you were a troublemaker, a truant, a rebellious kid, and now you're going to college.
Once I gave my life to the Lord, I was committed. I had the same energy, the same synergy. I was very focused.
Okay.
And I knew I wanted to go somewhere, because I didn't want to be my father. I didn't want to be, the things that I went through. And if I was going to have a family, I didn't want my kids to go through that. I wanted to stop the cycle somewhere. And so I thought that preparing myself, educating myself, going to school, doing the right stuff, plus the values of the gospel of Christianity and following the Lord.
So you had a new channel for those energies.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So I want to go back to Myra, though, because she is a PK, a pastor's kid.
Right.
And she is on record as having said in her younger days, I will never marry a pastor.
A pastor, yeah. That was very interesting, because when I was at Puerto Rico University, they called the regional, they had a branch in the city that we used to live. It was called Regional University of Puerto Rico. She was there, and I had a good friend who was a Christian, and he was always inviting me to go to the prayer meeting, the youth prayer meeting, which was Mondays at 12 noon. And I always said, I go to my church. I don't want to go out there. I come to school to study. I was real focused, and I wanted to finish fast, which I did. But just to get them off my back, I said, all right, I'll go with you. And as soon as I came in, I see this young gal. I just saw her back, because we came in through the back door, and everybody was looking forward. And she was sitting in the last seat, and when I saw her, I said, this is going to be my wife. I just saw her back. I said, this is going to be my wife. And so I started, trying to get to know her. I was president of the youth, of the church youth. And so she was in another church, the same denomination. And so my connecting point was, we need to get our youth groups together.
Oh, you sly devil, you. Okay, good. Well, we need to fast forward a little bit. You've now got 3 grown children.
Yes.
And you landed in California, and you're doing ministry there.
Correct.
And successfully, you're doing radio and TV talk shows, lots of things happening. And then you got a call to come to Michigan.
Right.
You are now in charge of a church startup, specifically a progressive Latino church
Correct.
startup. Because with the United Church of Christ, it's a progressive denomination.
Definitely.
A Protestant denomination. Talk about being called, first of all, out of the sunniness of California to, I won't say the God-forsaken Michigan, but at least warmth-forsaken state of Michigan. But you're here now, you've made it through a winter, but talk about the mission of Nueva Vida Church.
Well, Nueva Vida Church, first of all, the main goal is to be innovative and creative in terms of providing a worship space and a worship method to Latina, LGBT, and it's open and affirming. It's progressive, and that's our goal, to have that space and that type of worship where everybody's welcome. And when I say everybody, we mean everybody.
Sure. Now, there's some discomfort for a lot of Hispanic
Yes.
Americans with gay and lesbian folks.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, you have the levels of tolerance, and it's a cultural thing because Latinas have lower levels of tolerance towards gay people. That's the way they're taught. It is seen as a sin. There's no space to open up to have these dialogues in the context of the family. You don't have educational, either in school or in any other program from a Latino context, to discuss and challenge Latino families to enter that realm. And so a lot of Latina gay people, they feel that they have to, the safest place is the closet.
Sure.
And so if they come out, they're going to be kicked out of the home. There's no level of comprehension. And I'm not inventing this. This is what we have seen
Sure.
in California, in New York, wherever Latino families confront this challenge.
And if these are people who have a church background or have a connectedness to the church, they often, when they come out, then they also get shunned by
Exactly.
their
Exactly.
religion.
Usually, that is a good point, and is a real unfortunate truth. The Latina churches are very conservative, Protestant. We'll keep it in that level.
Sure.
And there is no interest in learning how God's unconditional love can touch people, despite of whatever preference or walks they have in life.
And I imagine if you've been shunned by your church, if you've been kicked out by your family, that's a refreshingly welcome message to hear.
Definitely, and especially because we understand Latino people, because we are for Latino people, because we believe in the creativeness, the art sense, the romance, and the potential that every Latino brings to the realm of a society, of a community. And it's unfortunate that that specific part of life has not been nurtured or developed with a honest, open conversation, so that people can understand that that's my son, that's my daughter,
Sure.
despite of.
Right. Are your worship services in English and Spanish and both?
We're doing Spanish services. It's at 3 p.m.
Okay.
And the building that we had the opportunity to work in, thanks to our conference and to the staff, has been renovated. And to many of the local UCC churches that are contributing and supporting, not only financially, but as well with prayers, with moral, with spiritual support, and the pastors as well.
And, excuse me, and the location is very strategic because Wyoming has a good-sized
Yes.
Spanish-speaking population.
Definitely, it's right there in Southwest Wyoming, and in fact, it's even better because it's right there next to a high school, and the high school, so that you can have an idea. And the people that are listening to us today, 85% of the school enrollment is by Latina kids.
And there you are on the corner. Your sign is
Right
up.
there.
People are welcome. Come
Right
on in.
there.
Right. We have to wrap up in a moment, but you have 3 adult children.
Yes.
And your one son, Benjamin, is gay.
Yes.
How has that informed your ministry?
Well, I think it was the turnaround point because I come from a charismatic background, and but I've always had this mentality. I guess because of the foster homes and all the troubles I went through.
You've known rejection.
We learn what rejection is, and it's not nice, and it's not fun, and it hurts a lot.
Yeah.
And so when our son Benjamin just decided to come out and say, "Hey, I'm gay," we were like, "Tell me something I don't know." And
First, yeah.
what's your problem? We love you.
Thanks
You're
for
my
sharing.
kid. You know and Benjamin is the artist of the family. He worked in Disneyland, Disney World, singing in the different caravans and different parades. He's been in his own show in a cruiser, in a ship, and he's done different plays in LA's. And so we're like,
And your kid's your kid, and you love your kid.
oh, definitely. I can say with all humbleness, Benjamin had to write a paper when he was in high school, and he shared it with me. Eventually, he said, "My dad is my hero," and that really, and it still gets to me when I go back to that, because we love all our kids. We love Dyra, our daughter, David. They're professionals as well. And Benjamin has brought us a beautiful sense of God loves gay people.
Awesome, awesome. Just to wrap up, final word, what does belonging mean to you?
Belonging means that you're accepted, that you have the capacity to embrace, that you understand, and that you're a part of something. And when you're a part of something, if you can contribute, if you can enhance it, if you can develop it, if you can be a part of that synergy, wow, what a blessing.
Awesome.
What a blessing.
Well, it's been a blessing having you here with us today. Thanks for coming by and telling us your personal story, but also want to wish you the best of luck in your ministry.
Sure, thanks to you. And I hope all the people that are seeing this, Latino, Latina, they have a place in our church, and they're going to be embraced and welcome, and they're going to feel that they belong.
Awesome. We'll leave the contact information on the screen for
Sure.
them. Thanks again for coming by.
Thank you, Alan.
That it'd be fun to play tennis on the moon in smaller gravity. And then the black hole, I was reading Stephen Hawking's book and studying about black hole. I was really curious about, like, man, what would it be like to go into a black hole?